Today, I'd like to suggest an alternate way of looking at focal dystonia. It's certainly not the only way, but my thing from my experience is that the more angles we could find to look at one thing, the more ideas and solutions we could come up for our personal problems, so I'm just here to share some ideas. I've mentioned before that a person's state of physiology is greatly influenced by the person's understanding of the world that surrounds them, which is not such a big mystery when we understand that life experiences that makes up our perceptions directly influences what kind of senses we are attentive to or not attentive to, what information we choose to pick up from the environment or choose to ignore from the environment, which also then influences our choice of decisions we make, which includes our body movement all the way down to our fine motor movement. I remember when I was pregnant, or when I found out that I was pregnant, I all of a sudden saw so many more pregnant ladies on the street. And after giving birth to the baby, I saw a lot of newborns on the street. And I think the same kind of things happen when you are about to buy a car. You all of a sudden start seeing that model car on the street. There were not all of a sudden many more pregnant ladies, newborn babies, or that model car on the street, and they've always been there, but our brain chooses to see what we are attentive to, what we are filling up our mind with, which then makes us make further decisions based on the world that we are seeing at the moment. Now, we are constantly seeking for information from the environment for the sake of our survival and the sake of fulfilling our own personal interest that makes up a sense of who we are. We are seeking information from the outer external environment and also from the inner internal environment, which is the internal environment is what's the environment of the inside of the body, and the understanding of what is happening inside of our body. We hold images of ourselves in the head. Our body image is constantly being renewed and updated every day depending on how we use them, what we are attentive to. In the same way we might see more pregnant ladies, newborn babies, and that model car on the street, we can fill up our mind with particular ways to activate certain parts of the body that is specific to the tasks we are operating within our own understanding. Parts of the body that we use and we sense and are attentive to gets incorporated into the image. Parts that are not being used or not being sensed or not being attentive to gets faded away from the image. And I think our body is really good at tracking this in very detailed manner. Depending on how we use our body or hand or which muscles we use a lot or don't use as much when we play the instrument, and perhaps even which part of the finger is in contact with the surface of the instrument, in what angle and how much or little pressure we are applying in fine detail. And I think it's precisely the reason why we should just take it easy and not practice when we are sick or when we are injured, because it throws off the perception of what is actually happening inside of our body. Now, if we start approaching focal dystonia as a state where the body image is exaggerated, hyper-exaggerated, as much as the exaggerated tension and unmovement that the musician experiences with focal dystonia, we can start seeing it as body's message to let us know what we could be more attentive to in order to find comfort in knowing our own body and to naturally restore the body image and thus the balance of the movement. I've come to a place where I feel that the focal dystonia is a state where our body is actively seeking for more information. Information that we have unconsciously shut out according to certain focus we have had, maybe perhaps when we play the instrument, or as a result of being hyper-focused on something else as a result of stress or physical injury. This is not something so difficult to understand. I could give you an example. A pianist feels tremendous tension and an uncomfortable sensation with his third finger, his middle finger, and he feels a big trouble. He feels the most trouble when he shifts, when he plays an ascending C major scale. For non-pianists, as you can see, the middle finger is the pivoting finger before it changes position, and the thumb takes over to play the next note. So after looking carefully on how he is feeling different parts of his middle finger in regards to the contact point and angle on the keyboard, he feels the most comfortable playing with his middle part where he has the most padding, slightly away from the nail, and he feels the most awkward sensation when he feels pressure on this a little bit on the side of his middle finger. So as a result of this awkward sensation, he has been unconsciously trying to avoid tilting his middle finger slightly towards the side, as we might naturally do a little bit when we play a C major scale. So what was happening is that he was clinging on to just the middle comfortable part that made him have a feeling of being stuck there and tense, which prevented him from changing contact point of his finger to the side, which made his whole hand, his whole body and arm rigid, without really knowing how he could undo the excessive tension of his body. But after working on being comfortable with the contact point of the side of his finger, now he is able to change a contact point of his middle finger, which allowed him to play the scale a lot more smoothly than he did before. I myself have many personal examples of being uncomfortable in different parts of my hands and fingers, which comes in contact with the keyboard. And for me, the most uncomfortable feeling was the middle or the side part of my thumb when I opened up my hand to reach an octave. Ironically, the most uncomfortable place is the place that we need to work on the most. That uncomfortable sensation, and even perhaps the scary feeling that a lot of us describe when we feel when you're in specific contact area or angle or pressure, is really real. It is scary that we might avoid contact with that place altogether. And it's real because our body does not hold a clear image of that specific place of the body where you are feeling the most uncomfortable, and perhaps we do not have an image of the outline of the body, which is the border between the outside world and your body. So contact with that part of your body provokes a defensive reaction, which is to tense up, freeze up, or pull away. So this is my guess of what is happening, only a guess, but what I can tell you is that when the image of that particular area is restored, the uncomfortable, scary sensation and the excessive tension starts fading away as well, and as a result we are setting ourselves up to move freer. So going back to the place, the part of the finger where it feels awkward, the approach that I have made for myself and what I share with other musicians with focal dystonia is to imagine that you don't see that part of your finger in your head. So we have vision and we have understanding of our body, our hands and the fingers, but that might not correspond to the body image that we have stored in our head. So exploring that side of the finger where you might have previously felt uncomfortable by touching lightly at first and reviewing and telling yourself that this part of your finger or this part of the body indeed exists. It is safe to feel because I know where the border of my body and the outside world is. And it will be an affirmation that you'll be telling yourself while you explore that uncomfortable place. Remember, what you are attentive to gets incorporated into your image. If you keep on navigating away from it, it never will. And when your body starts really understanding that that part of the body indeed does exist, it's okay to be in contact with a foreign object because we know the border between the outer world and the inner world. The awkward, scary feeling starts going away. Because we can now hold a clear image of that part of the body, and now we are not afraid of it. It requires keen and objective observation, but you could start by knowing which contact place or which contact area of your body provokes the most uncomfortable feeling or tension, and start letting yourself know the outline of the body and affirm that that part of the body is there, it exists. If you find yourself in an awkward position when you play, and you might be unconsciously navigating away from that certain contact point between your hand or your other parts of the body that comes in contact with your instrument. I've been fascinated by this, and it's really interesting since I see this again and again where once we can hold a very, very clear body image, the excessive tension starts fading away as well. And so we could start using the body in more harmonious ways. So that's just one idea for today. See you soon.